Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. You ready to go electric with me today?
Let's do it. I'm charged up and ready to explore this topic.
All right, well, buckle up because we're going to delve into the world of electric vehicles, or EVs for short, and see what they really mean for the environment.
It's such a hot topic these days, isn't it? EVs seem to be everywhere.
They really are, and there are so many strong opinions on both sides.
Yeah.
So today we're going to try to get beyond the hype and dig into some real insights.
Sounds fascinating. What sources are we looking at today?
We've got two really interesting perspectives. First, we'll hear from an Italian advocate who is super passionate about EVs, and then we'll shift gears and explore a TED Talk that challenges some common assumptions about how green they actually are.
So we have a believer and a skeptic. That should make for a lively discussion.
Exactly. I think you'll be surprised by some of the things we uncovered. Starting with our Italian source, his enthusiasm for electric vehicles is seriously contagious.
I love that kind of passion. It can be so inspiring.
It really is. He shares his personal experience in China and how he witnessed a huge improvement in air quality after they started adopting EVs on a large scale.
Wow, that's powerful. It's one thing to read about pollution reduction in reports, but to actually see and feel the difference in the air?
Right. It makes it real. He talks about how the air literally became cleaner and people's everyday lives were noticeably better because of it.
That's a pretty compelling argument for EVs.
It is. He also argues that we need to consider the recyclability of EV batteries, especially with new technologies like solid-state and sodium-ion batteries on the horizon.
And those advancements could really change the game, couldn't they? I mean, if you can make EV batteries even more sustainable.
Absolutely. That's a key part of the equation.
Yeah.
But hold on tight, because the TED Talk we're about to explore takes a very different stance.
Oh.
I have to admit, I was totally thrown off guard when the speaker who owns an electric car himself starts questioning their environmental benefits.
Wait, really? An EV owner who isn't fully on board with the whole eco-friendly image?
Yep, you heard that right. He actually uses this really interesting analogy. He compares car emissions to horses breathing out CO2.
Okay, I'm intrigued. How does that relate to EVs?
Well, he points out that just because horses exhale CO2 doesn't mean they're contributing to climate change. It's a natural cycle.
Oh, I see where he's going with this. So he's suggesting that maybe we're too focused on what's coming out of the tailpipe of an EV and not looking at the bigger picture.
Precisely. And that's where his idea of the imaginary box comes in.
Imaginary box. What's that all about?
It's a way to visualize how we assess the environmental impact of something like a car. He argues that we tend to draw this imaginary box around the tailpipe emissions. But to really get the full picture, we need to expand that box to include the entire life cycle of the vehicle.
So from the mining of materials for the battery all the way to manufacturing and what happens to the car at the end of its life.
Exactly. It's like zooming out to see the whole system instead of just one tiny part of it.
That makes a lot of sense. And I bet when we do that with EVs, we start to see some hidden costs.
You got it. The TED Talk speaker digs into the CO2 emissions from electricity generation itself. He reminds us that a big chunk of the world's electricity still comes from burning fossil fuels like coal, natural gas, and oil.
So even if your car isn't emitting any CO2 directly, you might be indirectly contributing to emissions if you're charging it with electricity from a coal-fired power plant.
Exactly. That's a huge point, especially when you consider that 2/3 of global electricity still comes from fossil fuels.
It definitely challenges the assumption that simply switching to an EV automatically makes you a green driver.
It does. And there's another factor to consider. The TED Talk also dives into the CO2 emissions associated with EV battery production. Apparently, manufacturing those batteries, especially for long-range EVs, generates a substantial amount of CO2.
So that's another piece of the puzzle. We need to consider the emissions from creating the battery itself.
Absolutely. And the speaker actually compares those emissions to the CO2 produced during the manufacturing of a traditional gas car.
I'm really curious to see how those numbers stack up. It sounds like we're starting to uncover some hidden truths about the EV revolution, and that's where the whole life cycle perspective becomes so crucial. You know, even if an EV has zero tailpipe emissions, we still have to factor in the emissions generated throughout its entire life, starting with that energy-intensive battery production.
Right. It's a real game changer in how we think about clean transportation. It's not just about the miles you drive, but the whole journey of the vehicle from cradle to grave, so to speak.
Exactly. And the TED Talk speaker actually provides some hard data to back up these claims. He shows the total CO2 emissions over a vehicle's average lifetime, comparing conventional cars, hybrids, and EVs with different ranges.
So what's the verdict? Does he declare a winner?
Well, it's not as black and white as you might think. He found that depending on the energy mix used to generate the electricity or the size of the EV battery, Some electric vehicles could actually emit more CO2 over their lifetime than a conventional gasoline car.
Wow, that's a pretty surprising finding. But it doesn't sound like he's saying electric vehicles are bad, just that we need to be a bit more realistic about their limitations.
You got it. He's advocating for more transparency and a more nuanced approach to reducing emissions. He's not anti-EV, but he is pro-honesty. One thing he said that really stuck with me is that focusing on smaller, lighter EVs with shorter ranges might be a more sustainable interim solution.
Interesting. So instead of going all in on those long-range EVs that need those massive energy-intensive batteries, he's suggesting we prioritize smaller, more efficient EVs until battery tech and renewable energy sources catch up.
Precisely. It's a more pragmatic approach, acknowledging that we're still in a transition phase. And it also highlights the importance of considering the specific context, An EV might be a fantastic choice for someone who mainly drives short distances in a city powered by renewable energy, but it might not be the most environmentally sound option for someone who lives in an area heavily reliant on coal power and frequently takes long road trips.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all solution.
Yep.
It really depends on your individual situation and the overall energy landscape.
Absolutely. And that's what makes these two sources we're looking at today so valuable. The Italian advocate's personal experience in China shows the very real benefits of EV adoption, particularly in terms of air quality. But the TED Talk speaker pushes us to think beyond those immediate benefits and consider the whole environmental picture.
It's like they're both pieces of the same puzzle. We need both the optimism and the critical analysis to make smart decisions about the future of transportation.
Couldn't agree more. And it's not even just about electric vehicles in and of themselves, it's about the larger systems they're a part of.
You're talking about things like the global energy grid and the whole process of sourcing and producing the raw materials for those batteries, right?
Exactly. We can't just shift to electric vehicles without also tackling these bigger systemic issues. The TED Talk speaker brings up a really thought-provoking point about this.
I'm all ears. What's he have to say?
Well, he argues that instead of simply focusing on replacing gas-powered cars with electric cars, we should be looking at transportation more holistically. He even suggests that maybe the real question isn't electric versus gas, but do we even need all these cars in the first place?
Now, that's a radical thought. He's basically challenging our entire car-centric culture.
He is. And while it might seem far-fetched to picture a world with significantly fewer cars, he's getting us to question our assumptions and consider other ways of getting around.
So instead of just trading one type of car for another, we should be thinking about more fundamental changes in how we move, like investing in public transit bike lanes and making cities more walkable.
Exactly. And that's why I find this TED Talk so engaging. It's not just about the technical aspects of electric vehicles. It's about sparking a wider conversation about the future of transportation and challenging us to think outside the box.
It's like he's urging us to expand that imaginary box even further to include not just the life cycle of a vehicle, but the entire transportation system itself.
That's a perfect way to put it. It's about seeing how everything is connected and understanding that there are no isolated solutions.
This deep dive has certainly given me a lot to think about. It's clear that the road to a sustainable transportation future is way more complex than just switching to electric cars.
I agree, but I think that complexity is what makes it so interesting. There's no easy answer, no silver bullet. It's going to require a mix of individual choices, policy changes, tech advancements, and maybe even some pretty big shifts in how we think about transportation as a whole.
Well, we've been on quite a journey with this electric vehicle exploration, haven't we?
We have. It's been a really fascinating discussion.
It has. We've heard from a passionate advocate for EVs, dug into some thought-provoking data, and even questioned some of our fundamental assumptions about transportation.
It's amazing how much there is to unpack when it comes to electric vehicles and their impact on the environment.
It really is.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are some of the key takeaways that we should all be thinking about?
I think the most important takeaway is that there's no simple solution when it comes to sustainable transportation. Electric vehicles have a lot of potential, but they're not a magic bullet on their own.
It's like that saying, if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Yeah.
We need a whole toolbox of solutions, not just one.
You're exactly right. And that toolbox includes things like renewable energy sources, better battery tech, and even reconsidering how much we rely on cars in the first place.
It's about thinking bigger about the entire system.
Yeah.
And not just focusing on one specific piece of it.
Exactly. And that's where our individual choices come in. We can all do our part by thinking about how we travel, supporting policies that encourage sustainable transportation, and staying informed about the latest developments in technology.
It's like we've expanded that imaginary box to include not just the vehicle, but our whole relationship with transportation.
That's a great way to put it. As we continue to expand that box, we open ourselves up to new possibilities and solutions that we might not have even considered before.
This deep dive has definitely given me a fresh perspective on this whole electric vehicle debate. It's not about blindly supporting or opposing EVs. It's about understanding the nuances, the complexities, and the connections between all these different factors.
Well said. And that understanding is what empowers us to make more informed choices, both as individuals and as a society, as we work towards a truly sustainable future for transportation.
I think that's a perfect note to end on. So for all of you deep divers out there, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep pushing for a better future. And if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to give it a like and subscribe to our channel for more thought-provoking discussions. Until next time, keep diving deep.